So, what is the chapter? He is talking of the lower triple. He is talking first of all the planes of consciousness, and he has spoken about the three lower planes. Now he is talking of the ladder of self-transcendence. We are normally identified with our body, our vital, and our mind. This is the level 1. Okay, so this is where we are ignorant. Now, if you want a spiritual life, you have to go to the ladder of transcendence. That you go beyond your body, beyond your vital, beyond your mind. That is what we are going to read today. Okay, so. Above matter and life. Okay, he is coming to the mind plane of consciousness. So shall we read?
Shall I read?
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Above matter and life stands the principle of mind. Nearer to the secret origin of things, the spirit poised in mind becomes the mental self of a mental world and dwells here in the reign of its own pure and luminous mental nature. There it acts in the intrinsic freedom of the cosmic intelligence, supported by the combined working of a psycho-mental and a higher emotional mind force. Subtilized and enlightened by the clarity and hope,
Happiness.
clarity and happiness of the sattvic principle proper to the mental existence. In the individual, the spirit so poised becomes a mental soul, Manomaya Purusha, in whose nature the clarity and luminous power of the mind acts in its own right, independent of any limitation or oppression by the vital or corporeal instruments. It rather rules and determines entirely the forms of its body and the powers of its life. For mind, in its own plane, is not limited by life and obstructed by matter as it is here in the earth process. This mental soul lives in a mental or subtle body which enjoys capacities of knowledge, perception, sympathy, and interpretation with other beings hardly imaginable by us, and a free, delicate, and extensive mentalized sense faculty not limited by the grosser conditions of the life nature or the physical nature.
Yeah. So he has already described to us the physical and the vital. Now he is describing the mental. But in the mental, he is also going beyond the normal mind of man, because the whole mind plane is there. Even in the spiritual planes of consciousness, there is the mind plane. Okay, so now one thing before we start, suppose you are a baby, you start your life as a baby and you take a picture of you. Then when you are 5 years old, you take another picture, totally different. Okay. Then finally, you take, when you are an adolescent, 15, 16 years old, you take a picture. When you are an adult, 25, 30 years old, you take a picture. And finally, when you are an old person, you take another picture. Now put all these pictures together on the table and call someone and ask him, what do you say? Is it the same person? He is likely to say, no, he is not the same person. How can this 7-pound baby be the old man? Not possible. This is exactly what happens to the consciousness. At the highest level, it is absolutely the divine soul. But as it keeps coming down, it goes on taking different forms. So the soul itself takes a form. So here he is describing the mental Purusha. Now when he talks of the Manomaya Purusha, the mental Purusha, it is the soul but taking the form in the mental world. Whatever is likely there in the mental world, that is the substance that you use and develop yourself in that way. Okay? So that's exactly what he's saying. So he has already spoken about, there is a subtle physical Purusha. Okay. You are not only one Purusha, you are growing up from lower levels to the higher levels. So you are on all planes of consciousness. And when you station yourself on one plane, you put on the characteristics of that plane. Okay, that's exactly what he is saying here in this one. So we have to understand this, that there is no contradiction. There is a mental Manomaya Purusha, there is a Pranamaya Purusha, there is also the physical, the Annamaya Kosha, Annamaya Purusha, okay? Corresponding, your soul takes all these different forms. This is what he is explaining to us. So when you are in the mental world, you become the mental soul. And when he talks about Manomaya Purusha, when you say, there is the question of the personality. When the Purusha is not there, it becomes the impersonal. But this is the personal. The individual soul is something very definite. Okay, it is personal and it takes all these forms. So now we read the para, but keep this in mind because sometimes it's puzzling. How can you be the mental Purusha? How can you be this? It depends on what condition you are in and where, in which world you are in. Okay. As they say, na, they say, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. In other words, you subject yourself to the conditions that are around you. So if you are in the mental world, you become the mental Purusha. When you are in the vital world, which are different conditions, you become the vital Purusha. Okay? It's very easy to understand. And this is exactly, but doesn't strike us in that way. So this is what you have to keep in mind. Now,
Rangada,
yeah, tell me. Tell me.
mental Purusha and mental ego are two different things.
No, ego is different. Ego is
Okay.
the one that makes you feel different from others. It gives
Okay.
you the individuality. And the mental Purusha also has an ego. The ego is something quite different. The ego and the soul are not different. Na? But when you are in the lower levels of consciousness, when you are a mental Purusha, Pranamaya Purusha and Annamaya Purusha, there is an ego. But as soon as you go beyond the mind, the ego disappears. And you
That was
Yeah, and you become the real individual, which is infinite. The ego is the one that makes you feel you are finite. So
okay.
ego is different. Keep in mind, the ego is the principle in nature which individualizes you and makes you feel separate from everybody else, as though you have a personality of your own, which is peculiar to you only. And that is the reason why what I was yesterday, I am today. What I was 1 month ago, I am today. You are actually not. Okay, even physically you have changed. Vitally you have changed. Experiences have changed you, but you still feel that you are the same. That's an individuality, but it's an egoistic individuality. When you go above the mind, then your ego disappears, and only the individuality remains. And that individuality now can become vast and infinite. As I again do, one image will help you to understand this. Take a grain of salt. It's got very, very clear features. That's your individuality with the ego. Now take that grain of salt and put it into water. Okay, what happens? The form has disappeared. The ego has disappeared. But has the individuality disappeared? No, because the salt is there everywhere now. And that's the true individuality. So this will help you to understand the egoistic individuality, the grain of salt, and the salt everywhere. Okay, that's a true individuality. Okay, I hope it helps.
Yes, Rangada.
Yeah. Okay. So now he is discussing the mental. So ego is that which makes you. And is it necessary? Yes, because if you don't have an ego, you become like a leaf in the wind. There is no purpose in life. There is no aim in life. There is no goal. You are not focused. For focusing and achieving what you want to do, ego is absolutely necessary. There are many people who are floaters. Okay, their ego is not developed, their individuality also is not developed. Okay, they go according. In French, you have a word called mouton de panurge. Mouton de panurge means wherever the sheep, you know that, na? All the cattle also, all the species, they always follow the leader. Wherever the leader is going, they go in a mass. So that is, they don't have an individuality of their own. They just follow the mass movement. So that, to break that, ego is necessary. You have to think what I'm doing, is it okay or not? So ego is very necessary, but it limits you. So when it limits you, you have to get rid of your limitation when you want to go higher up. That's the thing. So this para is describing the mental portion. I am reading each sentence and we'll see whether it is clear. Above matter and life, okay, matter is your body and life is your vital, stands the principle of mind. Note the word principle of mind. And the principle of mind is there everywhere. Okay? Just like the principle of body also is there everywhere, right up to the Satchidananda. But it becomes subtle. At a lower level, it is gross. Okay? The principle of mind. Not the mental mind of man, but the principle of mind. It is there everywhere. Okay. Nearer to the secret origin of things. Nearer from where? Nearer than when you are in a body, nearer than when you are in a vital. It goes nearer because you put on the sattvic nature. The mind characteristic is a sattva. The characteristic of mind is sattva. Sattva is what? Balance, bit of wisdom, a sense of balance, sense of understanding, consciousness. Okay, all these things are this sattva. Harmony, the finer qualities in man. This is all sattva. That doesn't mean to say that you don't have an ego. You have an ego. A sattvic ego can be very, very. He won't get angry easily. He won't get hurt very easily. Apparently, okay, he'll be very calm and quiet. But an ego is there. We have had many interesting cases where we have had people like that. You know, apparently very calm and quiet and nothing. But the self-estimation is very high. Okay, so that also is possible. All right, now I'm reading each sentence. Above matter and life stands the principle of mind, nearer to the secret origin of things. Which is the secret origin? The supermind. Okay, absolutely the highest. The spirit poised in mind. There you are, you see. The spirit poised in mind. Okay, where you can call yourself, when your spirit poised in mind, you are not in the, when you are poised in the body, you are a baby. When you are poised in the adolescenthood, then you are the vital. And when you are poised in the mind, after 21, you have the right to vote and you are considered an adult. So that's it. The spirit poised in mind. Okay. So becomes the mental self of a mental world. The self of a mental world, note that. Just now we discussed that wherever you are, you put on the nature of that world. Okay? Because there is a constant interaction between the universe and you. Don't think that you are separate. Okay? Wherever you are, the universe is interacting with you and you are interacting with the universe. Whenever you have a thought, whenever you have an emotion, whenever you are acting also, you are interacting with the universe, okay? With the world outside. I use the word in universe, but in the world outside. Okay? When I talk to somebody, I am having an effect in the physical world. When I have an emotion and my emotion goes out, it can hurt people or it can help people. Even my thoughts can help people or hurt people. Okay? So you are interacting with the world. But the world also is interacting with you. And you are not even conscious of that. Thoughts enter into your mind, they are coming from the universe. Vital emotions from others are coming into you. That's why they say, Mother says that these thoughts and vital emotions can be very contagious. They can actually change your nature. Okay, they are contagious. Just like we think that only diseases are contagious at the body level, but no. Even the vital has the principle of contagion, and even the mind has the principle of contagion. Even at the spiritual level, when the guru is giving you he is giving you help, okay, spiritual help. You receive it, it's contagion. His consciousness is coming into you. Okay? So this is constantly happening between you and the universe. Okay, so the spirit poised in mind becomes the mental shell of a mental world and dwells there in the reign of its own pure and luminous mental nature. So the mental world is a much clearer substance than the vital world, which is slightly more dirty, and the physical is the densest of all and the darkest. So when you go to the mental world, you are in the sattva principle. Okay? So they use the word pure and luminous mental nature. Mental nature can also become dirty, but if you are in the real mental world and in the right way, you can have a purity and a luminosity also. But luminosity is only at the mental level, not spiritual luminosity. There it acts in the intrinsic freedom of the cosmic intelligence. There you are. Okay? The mental world at that level is a cosmic intelligence. There is a consciousness there. When they use the word intelligence, is meaning consciousness, supported by the combined workings of a psycho-mental and a higher emotional mind force. So, can you be absolutely at the mental level only? No. You have been a body and you have a mind. So these are actually supporting you. That's what I'm saying. They're like a foundation. The body is there supporting you, and also he is using the words psycho-mental. Okay. So psycho-mental and the higher emotional mind force. Emotional mind is the higher vital. Okay. The mental vital, so the positive. Subtilized and enlightened by the clarity and happiness. Okay. A sort of such a happiness. Okay. So you are very in a contented condition. That's the part of the sattvic nature. Okay. So the higher mental force, subtilized and enlightened by the clarity and happiness of a sattvic principle proper to the mental existence. Sattva is proper to the mental existence. Sattva is not proper to the vital existence. That is, Rajas is proper to the vital existence. In the individual, the spirit so poised becomes a mental soul. Okay? So, you yourself, you only when you position yourself there, your spirit substance becomes the mental soul. Just as I told you, you are a baby, you are adult, you are an old man. So it's the same thing happening. Exactly in the same way here also this is what happens. Okay? In Manomaya Purusha. So poised becomes the mental soul. Okay? Don't get confused by mental soul. There can be a vital soul and a physical soul also. The soul is a subtle part of you and the consciousness, and it can take all these different forms. Okay. Yeah. So, exactly as in the atmosphere and the sea, both are very good examples. The atmosphere at the lowest level where we are is very dense. As you keep climbing higher and higher, it becomes clearer and clearer and less dense. And you have a great difficulty in breathing in those areas also. When you are on the Mount Everest, you need oxygen because the air is so rare. Okay, the density has decreased, and when you go into space, there is no air at all. Subtlest it becomes. Exactly in the same way. So, Manomaya Purusha, in whose nature the clarity and luminous power of the mind acts in its own right, independent of any limitation or oppression by the vital and corporeal instruments. The If you are absolutely only in the mind level, then the body and the vital will not influence you. But normally when you are at our level, the body is influencing you. When you are tired, you have to sleep. When you are hungry, you have to eat. The body is influencing you. When you are angry, your mind also gets agitated. Okay, so that's what it's saying. But if you are purely in the mental world, like the higher mind, then you are not affected by these things. You become absolutely calm and quiet and luminously poised. Okay, so that's what he's saying. In other words, this description of this one is in the higher mind level onwards, because he has spoken about the principle of mind, not our mind, but the principle of mind. The principle of mind starts as a physical mind, vital mind, pure mind, and finally higher mind, illumined mind, intuitive mind, all this. So that's the principle of mind. Okay? So in its own right, independent of any limitation or oppression by the vital and corporeal instruments. It's a huge phrase, but what he means is you are completely not identified with your body and your vital. They don't affect you at all. You are just watching them from above. You are seated on the mountain top and you are watching your vital and your body acting at the valley level. Okay. Corporeal instruments. Corporeal instruments, very clear, your senses. Okay. It rather rules and determines entirely the forms of its body and the powers of its life. When you are in the mental world, this is what you can do. You can even have a little bit of power over your body and also the life. Okay. Normally in the beginning you don't have, you're not interested in the lower, but you can have the power if you feel like it. The little bit of power comes in. For mind in its own plane is not limited. In its own plane, we are not in the plane of mind. We are more in the body, vital, and the mind all together. So there is a mixture. But when you are only there, when your soul rises only to the mind plane of consciousness, it is not limited by life and obstructed by matter as it is here in the earth process. The earth process is our normal level 1. Okay. The mental soul lives in a mental or subtle body. Okay. Note that. There is a body, a mental body is there, subtle body, which enjoys capacities of knowledge, perception, sympathy, and interpenetration. Okay, not interpretation, interpenetration. That means you can penetrate into other people's minds, and other people's minds also can penetrate into you. There's a flow, and identification becomes possible. If there's an interpenetration, identification becomes possible. That's what he's saying. With other beings, hardly imaginable by us, and a free, delicate, and extensive mentalized sense faculty, not limited by the grosser conditions of the life nature or the physical nature. So what does he mean by delicate, extensive, mentalized sense faculty? Look at the words, how precise he is. What does he mean? Delicate, extensive, mentalized sense faculty are the subtle senses. They are available to you at the level 2, at the spiritual planes of consciousness, subtle senses. You can see other people's thoughts. You can hear voices which are not usually audible. Okay. You can sense things at a distance. Okay. You can even feel the touch of things at a distance. So this is these subtle senses. But how precisely he is defining them? See, he is saying delicate, very delicate, subtle, extensive, very wide. Okay. It's not limited only to something, it is extensive. Remember the experience of the yogi who is feeling the whip lashes being given to the animal, he feels it on his own body. Okay. So extensive. Even 100 meters away when an animal is beaten, the whip marks come on his own back. Okay. So that's the extensive, mentalized sense faculty. They are senses, but they are subtilized and very, very more powerful than the normal. Okay. And how to understand subtle senses? Very easy. When you are dreaming, okay, you are seeing things and you are hearing things, but you are not using your ears and your eyes. So there is a power of subtle sight and there is a power of subtle hearing. Normally in dream only these two things are there, but in the spiritual planes of consciousness, there is even a subtle touch, a subtle smell, and also a subtle taste, and also a subtle touch. Yeah, as I said, touch also. All these things are possible. Okay. Shyam has given a very interesting example of subtle smell. Okay, in the record of yoga, he says that in winter, when it is very cold outside and at midnight, okay, the windows and doors are all closed and there is all at midnight, nobody is working, and yet you can get the smell of fresh bread being baked. So what is going to be baked or what has already been baked is coming to him, because nothing disappears in the physical world. We know that they all, whatever happens is retained in the universe. Never nothing disappears. So he's experiencing that, it is coming to him. You may wonder why only uh, fresh bread and not something else, but that also is possible. Sometimes you can smell flowers at a distance. You certainly feel the. I'll give you a very interesting example with ordinary people. Huh? So this you'll understand is very interesting. There was a girl, I knew her well, and she was in America, and she was very fond of her father. But the father had the habit of smoking a particular type of cigarette. Okay, I'm giving you the example of subtle sense. And she was in America, and she was very fond of her father. So there is a subtle connection. And the father also was very fond of her. But in Calcutta, one day he died. Okay. And this girl in America suddenly felt his presence. And how did she feel that presence? She could smell that cigarette, that smell. Isn't that interesting? So she told me this herself. Okay. And she knew that his presence is there. Okay. So when we used to go to mother, her perfume, when she is blessing you or giving you a flower from her hand, the perfume is to come to you and it will remain with you for about 2-3 hours. And if you are lucky, even more. Sometimes if you are lucky and you feel the presence of the mother, it can happen. Many people get that perfume smell which mother used to use. This is subtle sense. Okay. And if you remember that poem, I'm making a little diversion to make it absolutely concrete to you. What are subtle senses? Then if you remember that famous poem of Sri Lanka's Invitation, okay? Who will climb with me? Who will go with me up to the hills and the moorlands I go? With the wind and the weather beating around me. Yeah? And afterwards in a conversation, in the evening talks, he said that he was actually feeling that. Okay? The wind and the weather beating around him subtly. There is no storm, physical storm, but there is a storm at the subtler level. So that is what he means by. So look at this. Delicate and extensive mentalized sense faculty is nothing but subtle senses. Okay? Not limited by the grosser condition of the life nature or the physical nature. Now we can read the next one. Yeah, you can.
Excuse me.
Yeah, tell
What
me.
do you mean exactly by the vital mind?
It's a mixture of mind and vital. The vital is purely emotional, no? But there's no logic in it, there's no thought in it. It is like the a pure water and slightly colored water mixing together. Okay, that's a vital mind. It's not pure mind and it's not pure vital. There's a mixture. If you think of a slightly colored water, okay, like a cool drink, okay, and you have a pure water which is mind, and the colored drink is the vital, you mix them two. There's a little bit of that and a little bit of this. More of emotion and less of mind, but that's a vital mind. All your desires usually come from the vital mind. Sometimes it can come even from the body and also the pure vital, but the vital mind is exactly that. There is a mixture of the two. In the gradation, from the lowest to the highest, there are, in between there are mixtures. There is a physical vital. We have discussed this sometimes and I am repeating now. The example of a physical vital is the nerves. The nerve is a physical thing, but it is capable of transmitting the electrical currents in the body, okay? The bio currents. Not everything in the physical world, in the physical body is capable of currents, okay? Take for instance your bone, okay? The bone will not be able to carry the electrical impulse, but your nerve is capable of that. So that's a vital physical. Exactly in the same way, extend it to the vital mind, okay? Yeah, vitality and this. So there is a, and take the physical mind, okay, that is your brain. It is matter which has become capable of thought. That's a physical mind. Okay. The physical mind is the brain, and that's we call it the manas in our Indian psychology. It is that which interprets all the sense data. Okay? Yasmin?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I hope it helps. The best is always with examples, then it becomes clear. Okay, so who will read the next one? Shilpa is saying she will read. Okay,
Yes. Shall
go
I?
ahead. Yeah, go ahead. Man,
Man, man too has in himself subliminal, unknown, and unseen concealed behind his waking consciousness and visible organism, this mental soul, mental nature, mental body, and a mental plane, not materialized, in which the principle of mind is at home and not as here at strife with a world which is alien to it, obstructive to its freedom and corruptive of its purity and clearness. All the higher faculties of man, his intellectual and psychomental being and powers, his higher emotional life, awaken and increase in proportion as this mental plane in him presses upon him. For the more it manifests, the more it influences the physical parts, the more it enriches and elevates the corresponding mental plane of the embodied nature. At a certain pitch of its increasing sovereignty, it can make man truly man and not merely a reasoning animal, for it gives then its characteristic force to the mental being within us, which our humanity is in the inwardly governing but still too hampered essence of its psychological structure.
so he's giving more details about the mental level. Okay, so man too. So he has been speaking about the universe. Okay, there is a universal mind, and your individual soul, when it goes into the individual universal mind, it takes on the characteristic of the universal mind. But now he is talking of the individual. Man too has in himself subliminal, unknown and unseen, concealed behind his waking consciousness and visible organism, this mental soul, mental nature, mental body, and a mental plane, not materialized, in which the principle of mind is at home and not as here at strife with a world which is alien to it, obstructive to its freedom, and corruptive of its purity and clearness. Okay, we have discussed it many times, but I'll again say it so that it becomes clear to you. In the involution, when the one is manifesting and becoming the many, okay, there is a descent. The highest consciousness starts descending. And when it starts descending, the subtlety becomes less subtle, less subtle, less subtle, less subtle, less subtle, until finally it becomes matter. If that is, if you take substance, now that is sat. Now you take mind, chit. Okay. At the highest level, chit is absolutely clear and full of light. Then, when it comes down, it starts becoming less and less light, until finally, at the lowest level, it is darkness. Okay. Then you take also force. That also, at the highest level, full force, omnipotence. But as it keeps coming down, it becomes more and more less and less powerful, okay, more and more incapable of action. Finally, in matter, it seems to be absolutely without power, but it is there hiding. Okay, that's it. Then finally, Ananda also same thing. When the Ananda also is there, which is absolutely 100% at the highest level, starts reducing itself, because Satchidananda is reducing itself. Why it is reducing itself, we have discussed many times. Manifestation means limitation. Okay, so it comes down and becomes so. Now Silva is saying, he has discussed the universe. These are what are called the pure planes of consciousness. Okay, they are very, very pure because they are starting from the highest level. So these are the subliminal. It is, Sarda says it's a double ladder. In the involution, These mind planes are absolutely pure. Even matter is pure substance. Now, when you are evolving, going upwards from matter, this is a double ladder. This is the ascent. And there are two worlds. One is the involved worlds which are subliminal. So they use the word subliminal. Behind, he is using the word behind. Okay, and the second ladder is the evolutive ladder. Evolutive, you are going upwards. But now you are starting from darkness. Therefore, there is a mixture. There is a mixture of the when you come to the mind, the vital world, there is a mixture of matter in it. When you come to the mental world, there is a mixture of vital and physical. So there is a mixture of all the, and as you keep going up, there is obstruction. The lower is obstructing, but slowly, it does rise. Okay, but it is obstructed. But in the other plane of consciousness, the other one involved world, which is the inner world, okay, those are pure planes, and simply saying there is no obstruction there at all. These are called what you call the intra-conscient. Okay, so keep in mind this double ladder. There is a involution, which are pure planes of consciousness, and there are surface consciousness, the evolutive planes of consciousness, matter, life, mind, spiritual planes of consciousness, supramental. Okay, so as you keep going higher and higher in the evolution, you are becoming more and more capable of interacting with the pure planes of consciousness also. So this Sriyanga says it's a double ladder, downwards and upwards. So if you go to the mental world, it is possible for you to go into the pure mental world. That's what he's describing here. Okay? And he's calling it subliminal. Subliminal is the below the surface. But Sirendo doesn't like the word very much, that's why he uses the word intra-conscient. You have to go behind, okay? It is horizontal. You have to go deep into yourself, not above. Above is the superconscient, but this is the intra-conscient which you go inside yourself. There also you have the subtle senses are available to you, okay? Man too has in himself subliminal, unknown and unseen to the normal man, okay? Concealed behind the waking consciousness. Note the word behind, horizontally. Okay, it's not above, it's behind. You have to go deep into yourself. Behind his waking consciousness and visible organism. Okay, the waking consciousness and visible organism, your body. Okay, this mental soul, mental nature, mental body, and a mental plane. So these are all the mental plane is universal. The mental body is the body in which your mind is got a form. Na? All your thoughts have got forms. Remember, I told you about Jugalda. Okay, mother is seeing the forms coming out of his mind, and she says he is so clear because if your thought is clear, the thoughts coming out will not be hazy, fuzzy, with cloudy like substance. It will be very clear form. That's a clarity of mind. Okay, so that's what Swami is saying here. It will be a mental body and its mental nature. The characteristics of the mental world also will be there. What are the characteristics? Luminosity, clarity, okay, good side, discrimination, okay, a certain basic happiness. All these are the sattva characteristics. Okay, so this is what he's saying. And this one is not materialized because it is coming from above. You see, pure mind plane in which the principle of mind is at home, okay, and not as here at strife with a world which is alien to it, obstructive to its freedom, and corruptive of its purity and clearness. This is the second ladder which is going up. That is, there is an obstruction of the physical in your mind. That's why we are not capable of understanding things, and we have to struggle to understand things. Okay, that's what it means. I hope it is clear. The two ladders. Okay, if you picture that to yourself, this will become very clear. Okay, so all the higher faculties of man, his intellectual and psycho and psycho-mental. Okay? Psycho-mental being and powers, his higher emotional life awaken and increase in proportion as this mental plane in him presses upon him. The more it manifests, the more it influences the physical parts, the more it enriches and elevates the corresponding mental plane of the embodied nature. The inner mind is capable of influencing the outer mind. That's what it is. At a certain pitch of its increasing sovereignty, it can make man truly man. When you become really a man who lives in the mental world and not in the ordinary body-mind life. You remember in the synthesis he spoke about right in the beginning, the three levels: the bodily life, the mental life, and the spiritual life. So here he is describing the mental life, not influenced by the body-mind life. Okay? Sorry, the body and the vital. Okay. At a certain pitch of its increasing sovereignty, it becomes master, sovereign. It can make man truly man and not merely a reasoning animal, which 90% of humanity are only reasoning animals. All of us are that. Okay? He's using a word, but you don't need to buck and we don't need to feel bad about it. That's what nature is. For it gives then its characteristic force to that mental being within us, which our humanity is in the inwardly governing but still too hampered essence of its psychological structure. In other words, the more you progress upwards, the more you become mental and the more you have control over your body and your body. So now we can read one more para because we have got 3-4 minutes. It is possible for man to awaken. Can we do that quickly? How big is the para? Not very big. We can read it.
Shall I read?
Yes, please. Go ahead. It is possible for man.
It is possible for man to awake to this higher mental consciousness, to become this mental being, put on this mental nature, and live not only in the vital pursuit, but in this mental body. If there were a sufficient completeness in this transformation, he would become capable of a life and a being, at least half divine, for he would enjoy powers and vision and perceptions beyond the scope of this ordinary life and body. He would govern all by the clarities of pure knowledge. He would be united to other beings by a sympathy of love and happiness. His emotions would be lifted to the perfection of the psychomental plane. Patience, intellect, untractable, delivered from the deviations of the impure pranic energy and the obstructions of matter. And it would develop too the reflection of wisdom and bliss higher than any mental joy and knowledge. For he could receive more fully and without our incompetent minds becoming and falsifying mixture the instrumental and missions that are the errors of the supernatural life and his perfected physical mental existence in the own power of that lesser splendor. He could then realize too the self, the spirit, in a much larger and more luminous and more intimate intensity than is now possible, and with a greater display of its actual power and bliss to satisfy the harmony of its existence.
Okay. Your reading was very broken, and I don't know if it is your internet or my internet. So I would like to ask others whether you hear clearly or there was also a broken thing. Shilpa, Archana Ji?
No, I couldn't hear it clearly.
So the problem is with Sunki's internet, which is unusual because in Korea the internet is very good.
Yeah,
So,
I think it's my earphone maybe. My earphone connection may not be good. I will change. Sorry.
Okay, that's why I asked everybody, because it could be my internet also. Okay, that's why I asked. It is all very broken. Some of the we could not even hear what you're saying. Okay, so we'll read this next time, because today we are already at 8:35. Okay, so Suki, note down. It is possible for man. Okay, we'll
Yes.
redo this by next Friday.
Thank you,
470.
brother.
Okay, au revoir everybody.
Let's